All right, guys, let's review what happened last night at the Kokomo Speedway in Kokomo, Indiana for race number 3 of the Midweek Money Series. 42 cars in attendance for this race. It's also race number 15 of the full 59 race schedule. So like I said, 42 cars showed up. It started out with Cale Thomas going quick time overall, only 18 thousandths of a second off of the track record, and the only driver into the 10-second bracket at 10.945. Cale Thomas is an underrated driver in sprint car racing right now, driving that J. Kaiser Racing 23. Obviously, it's good equipment, but when you compare it to a guy like a Brad Sweet or a James McFadden, it's crazy to see that a guy like Cale Thomas comes out there and is able to go quick time at such a high event like Kokomo with that many cars. So kudos to him. And unfortunately, his night would not go very good after that. But still, it was really cool to see that. Brenham Crouch, he was second, 11.051. Tyler Courtney, Parker Price Miller, and Cole Macedo be the top 5 in Flight A qualifying. Flight B, it was Buddy Kofoid. He was the one World of Outlaws driver that showed up for this race. Justin Peck, Corey Eliason, Corey Day, and Darren Ida with a top 5 run in qualifying. Going into the heat races, Tyler Courtney would win heat race number 1. Second would go to Cole Macedo. And then third was McFadden. Fourth was Zeb Wise. And fifth went to Brent Marks. And this is where Cale Thomas's night kind of went sideways. Him and Kyle Larson racing for the last transfer spot. And they're sliding each other back and forth. They go into turn 1. Larson throws a really slow slider at Cale Thomas, who tries to drive around the outside of it. They get together. Definitely looked like Larson's fault more than anything. And he goes for a big barrel roll. Cale Thomas, he would not make it back onto the racetrack. Too much damage to keep going for the J. Kaiser car. He would come back out, though. He would start on the pole of the B main. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. Yeah, that was a tough one. So that sent Cole Macedo to the dash since Cale Thomas did not finish inside the top 5. So it was Courtney and Macedo going to the dash, and he won. Heat 2, things kind of calmed down a little bit. Rico Avery would get the win after an early race battle with Parker Price Miller. Brenham Crouch would finally go to his first dash of the season, going 4th to 3rd in car number 1. Brandon Wimmer and Ryan Timms completed the top 5 in that one, so it was Avery and Crouch going to the dash. Then in the third heat race, for the first time since East Bay, we had a driver get the quote-unquote ace in the hole. That means they drove from 4th to 1st, being the highest or the fastest qualifier and winning the heat race. So Buddy Kofoid, by virtue of doing that, would be on the pole automatically of the dash, and he would bring Corey Eliason with him to that dash. Third went to Spencer Baston. Fourth was Hunter Schoenberg, and fifth went to Darren Nida. As you can see there, Baston and Schoenberg drove from 6th and 7th to go 3rd and 4th in the heat race. So the track was certainly racy early on in the night. Heat race number 4, Corey Day would get the win over Brad Sweet, Jacob Allen, Justin Peck, and Skylar G. It would be Day and Peck going to the dash out of that one. Then in the C main, obviously Kyle Larson got upside down, as we mentioned there, and he does not have a provisional allotted to him because he is actually not running the entire Midweek Money Series. The drivers that are running full-time with that little Midweek Series do have one provisional to use, but Kyle Larson revealed a few weeks ago that he will not be at Grandview Speedway for that event, and so that kind of takes away his eligibility for a provisional, and so he does not transfer out of the C main. Danny Sams III and Casey Kane would be the 2 cars going from the C main to the B main. Larson's night would end very, very early in that 57 car. Kevin Newton 4th and Jimmy Light in the 5th spot in the C main. Then in the B main, this may have been the race of the night. There was just so much craziness going on in this one, so many storylines to follow along with. Tanner Thorson would drive from 5th to the win, and then second was Chris Windham. He started back in 8th. So your winner was from 5th, your second place finisher was from 8th. Brady Bacon on a late race yellow had a flat right rear tire and was able to hang on for the last 2 laps and grab that final transfer spot. And then there's Cale Thomas. He started on the pole. Looks like he was going to dominate this B main, but then something went wrong there late in that race, and he was fading quickly, got passed by 2 cars in 1 lap as he was floating in the middle, and at one point in time did not look like he was going to transfer. And this is the moment when Zane DeVault, who, my goodness, he was on the absolute hammer in that lane racing number 4 car, was driving around the outside. This guy, I think, is kind of underrated right now, Zane DeVault is. He was coming around the outside and was looking like he was going to transfer and get around Brady Bacon before Bacon had that tire going down. He came off of turn number 4, absolutely pounding the curb. hooked the cushion right front, got up on the wall, and he did the fully, or was it Herbie fully loaded, and was like riding the catch fence, and then came down, did some huge cartwheels. Luckily, he was okay, but boy, was that a bold move. It was definitely an exciting move because it looked like he was going to make it happen, and it did not work out. So Zane DeVault would not finish, but Cale Thomas would grab the last transfer spot. Dylan Norris was fifth, and Emerson Axum in sixth. Those two did not make the show. Then moving on to the dash, it was Buddy Kofoid getting the win over Corey Day, Rico Abreu, Tyler Courtney, Justin Peck, Corey Lyson, Brendan Crouch, and Cole Macedo. Sorry about that, guys. The downside of being in a hotel is having housekeeping knocking on your door when you're in the middle of filming a video. So no, I do not need my pillow fluffed. So the dash, it started off a little crazy because 6 cars were late to the staging lane, and that put Corey Lyson, who was supposed to start 4th, on the pole, and Rico Abreu, who was supposed to start 7th in the dash. He would start outside the front row, and that would move the rest of those guys towards the tail. So Buddy Kofoid actually started back in 4th in this one and would still get the win. Corey Day, though, most impressive. He drove from dead last to 2nd in the dash. And so on the front row of the feature would be 2 of the brightest young stars in sprint car racing right now, one on the Outlaw Tour and one on the High Limit Tour. And so getting into the feature, the track, it looked really good. It was very exciting at the very beginning. For the first, 10 or so laps, it's typical Kokomo, pound the fence, sliders, a couple guys able to roll the bottom, but it was mostly pretty top dominant. Housekeeping just won't leave me alone today. Real quick, like I was saying, so the feature started off good. So Corey Day actually would jump out front with this one. He would lead the first 6 laps of the feature. And then, it looked like it was his race to lose. And the crazy thing was he was going for his 3rd straight midweek money series win in a row. And there's only been 3 of them. He would have swept the first 3. I'm not saying he would have won, but he definitely looked like the car to beat. Up until the feature, it looked like Buddy Kofoid was the guy to beat. He was quickest in his qualifying. He went 4th the first in the heat. He went 4th the first in the dash. And then Corey Day around the outside on the start got by him and would lead the first few laps until the spindle broke on the right front and the tire bounced off the car and it rolled from turn 1 all the way to the middle of 3 and 4. And basically his night would be done after that. He would go to the work area. They would change out the front axle, but he would come back out and, just the craziness at the back of the field at Kokomo. He'd get involved in a couple more incidents trying to make his way forward. At one point in time, he was back up to like 13th or 14th, but then got into an incident and fell towards the tail. And you see Corey Day down there, 24th in the finishing order after leading the first 6 laps. So after his tire flew off, Kofoid would jump out with the race lead. And it wasn't like he pulled away a significant amount. I think at one point in time, maybe a half straightaway, maybe a straightaway ahead of Tyler Courtney. But then Courtney kind of reeled him back in when they got to traffic. Traffic was 4 wide in front of the leaders. Absolutely crazy stuff. And, Buddy got kind of stuck behind Casey Kane, who was the first car to go a lap down and held up his momentum for just 1 minute. Buddy tried to run the middle in 3 and 4. Sunshine ran the top. He got a huge run on him down the straightaway, threw a slider, got by him. And, then he would lead for the rest of the way. And then, after that, it's probably started to lay rubber, I would say, probably about lap 15, lap 12, maybe a little bit later than that. And Sunshine definitely found it first. And you could kind of tell, I think I said it on the broadcast, you could kind of tell that the rubber was coming. Guys were running about a half a lane off the cushion and still making speed, and it was getting pretty black. It was really bad in 3 and 4. 1 and 2, not as bad, which I'll get to here in a minute. But Sunshine would take the lead, but it wasn't like he ran away with it. He had to really pace himself. And in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because I work for High Limit, but I still thought that it was an entertaining race considering that it had taken rubber. And may I add that I have not seen Kokomo take rubber, but maybe one time in my entire life. And it's kind of tough because it was their first race of the year. And that was one thing I was worried about. They haven't raced all year. They've had a couple rainouts here and there, and they haven't really gotten the track dialed in yet for this year. So I was worried about this being an issue, and sure enough, it came true. But, it wasn't like it wasn't entertaining. Sunshine got to the back of the field. He was stuck behind Skylar G, but he was having to try and pace himself. He didn't want to get too close to Skylar G and then try and, slide him or get stuck behind him when he made a mistake. And he was trying to stay, like this perfect distance between him and Skylar, and then a perfect distance between himself and Buddy. And it was working for him. He was pacing himself. He was keeping the tires underneath of him. And then there was a few times late in the race when, Buddy actually would run the cushion in 1 and 2, and it would work. You could tell that he was making up more speed than what Sunshine was doing through the rubber. It only worked in 1 and 2 though. And at one point in time, I really did think that Buddy was going to, run it and somehow get around him. It just looked like it had that much speed to it, but it did not work out for him in that way. Coming down to the end, Spencer Baston was really coming on strong. He was fighting with Corey Eliason and Brad Sweet. Sweet early in this race looked like he may have been a contender for the win, but kind of stalled out when he got to 4th or 5th position. Corey Eliason for a moment, he took the lead and never led a lap, but he kind of slid in front and he'd get crossed over by Buddy or Sunshine. So it was definitely an entertaining race. And then towards the end, Spencer Baston, he was the hard charger. He went plus 10. He would get by Buddy coming or on the white flag lap. Buddy came off of 4, kind of hooked the cushion wrong, but still was close enough to Sunshine to make a run at him and try and ran the cushion in turn 2 to get around him on the outside. But at the same time when he did that, Skylar G kind of like messed up going into turn 1. Sunshine went underneath of him. And when he did that, Buddy was already around the outside, and Sunshine almost accidentally used Skylar G as a pick. He got in the way of Buddy, and Spencer Baston able to drive underneath him and take 2nd in the last corner. So Sunshine would get the win. He was the Durst Dice Roll driver that was claimed at 2 races in a row. It was Brent Marks at Tri-City and then Tyler Courtney here at Kokomo. So he would get $2,200 or $22,000 for the win. He led laps 22 through 40. Spencer Baston 12th to 2nd, a run that this team really, really needed. Podium finish at his home track, his home state. Very, very cool to see that for the CJB Motorsports car. And they were fast pretty much all night. Great job to those guys. Really glad to see that for them. Buddy Kofoid making his first start of the year with High Limit Racing. He was, I think, the car to beat all night long until Corey Day was good early until his issue. But after that, Buddy was the car to beat, just got kind of held up in lap traffic. He led laps 7 through 21, and he would score $5,250 for the 3rd place effort. Corey Eliason, great 3-race stretch for him. He was 7th at 34, 7th at Tri-City, and he gets 4th here at Kokomo, his best finish of the season. Him and Jim Shuttlesworth have got that thing turned around, going the right direction, and they look really good right now. Good to see for them. And, I think they're going to get better and better as the season progresses. I'm glad that Ridge and Sun Racing has allowed them to kind of, mesh and gel, not just kicking Corey to the curb or anything when he's not running good. They are definitely turning things around. Brad Sweet was 5th. Justin Peck was 6th. Then Rico Abreu, James McFadden, Parker Price Miller, and Brenham Crouch. Started 7th, finished 10th. First top 10 of the year, first dash appearance of the year. Crouch is definitely turning things around as well. And we were kind of expecting him to have a slow start. 18-year-old driver, never been on a national tour of sprint car racing. And you could tell that he's getting better and better every single night here on the High Limit Tour. Gets his first top 10 of the year. Great job to Brenham Crouch. 11th was Tanner Thorson. He drove from 21st up to 11th after winning the B-Main. He actually tied Spencer Baston for most positions gained, but the hard charger will go to Baston for finishing higher up in the running order. And then it was Hunter Schoenberg, Ryan Timms, Cole Macedo. Cale Thomas, 24th to 15th after qualifying quick time. You got to hand it to him. I wish we could have seen what would have happened if he didn't get into that incident with Kyle Larson and got into that incident and had to come out of the B. I think he could have been, obviously, he would have been in the dash if he would have stayed in the top 5 and maybe contended for a top 5 finish here this evening. But still a solid 15th place effort for what happened to him. Brent Marks, 16th. That top 10 streak has come to an end. Him and Brad Sweet came into the weekend, the only 2 drivers top 10 for every high limit race this year, and it is over. I think I may have mentioned it maybe in the preview, but I definitely mentioned it to a couple people in the pit area that this could be the race that Brent Marks loses that top 10 streak because he had never been to Kokomo. Kokomo Speedway does not seem like a Brent Marks racetrack, and certainly came true. He, transferred straight to the heat race, but after that, he, definitely struggled. That's a place that is not up his alley. He comes from Pennsylvania. That is not a Pennsylvania-type racetrack. Brent Marks, 16th. Brady Bacon, Brandon Wimmer, Chris Wyndham, and Zeb Wise, the top 20. And then Darren Knight, I got a pink dot next to him. I thought he was impressive. Then I got into an incident in the feature, but he qualified 5th. He finished 5th in the heat race. And Darren Knight, one of those up-and-coming drivers that, I want to talk about when we get like maybe a top 10 of the youngest up-and-coming drivers. Darren Knight is certainly on that list. Then it was Skylar G, Casey Kane, and then you got Corey Day down there. What could have been for him? Led the first 6 laps, right front wheel comes off, and he finishes down in 24th, gives up the points lead in the Midweek Money Series, gives it up to Tyler Courtney. And then Jacob Allen, I don't know what's going on with him, but 3 finishes in a row outside of the top 20. Not sure what's going on with the 1A car right now, but he started 14th, pulled off early, and did not have a good night at all. So, yeah, I thought it was a great race from Kokomo. Even though it took rubber, it was still, somewhat entertaining. I thought the heat races were good. Qualifying is always exciting. The B main was worth the price of admission in and of itself. The dash, Corey Day, 8th, 2nd. And then, you had some movers and shakers in this one. We had 3 different leaders. It was still a really good night of action. Not exactly what we were coming to Kokomo to see. We expect to see it not take rubber. But still, I thought it was entertaining. I think the fans still had a good time. Durst Dice Roll hit. There was a lot of good positive things that came out of Kokomo Speedway. And so I think on my score sheet here, we expect to see 2 lanes of racing, 3 lanes of racing, 4 wide, at Kokomo in the future. That didn't exactly happen here tonight, but it was still entertaining. And so with that, I'm going to give it a 74 out of 100. Still a decent score. Just wish it didn't take rubber, but still, I think the fans got their money's worth. It was a lot of fun to watch, fun to call from the booth. We had a lot of fun up there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this race recap, and we'll see you later on today for a race preview for the next race, which is going to be Outlaw Speedway in New York. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe, hit the like button, comment down below. What did you think about Kokomo Speedway? And we'll see you guys in the next one here on the channel. Thanks.